Okay, let's talk about the UAE Corporate Tax Return. I know. Just hearing the words can sound a little intimidating, especially with deadlines on the horizon. But honestly, it doesn't have to be a headache. We're going to break down the official form, piece by piece, so you know exactly what they're asking for. By the time we're done here, you'll have a super clear roadmap to get this filed without breaking a sweat.
So, this is it. This is the official game plan for your tax return, all laid out in 7 core steps. Think of it like a journey. We start with the basics about your business, and we end up at the final submission. And don't worry, we're going to walk through every single one together so you'll know exactly what's coming next.
So here's how we're going to do this. First, we'll just get a feel for the form itself. Then, we'll get into your business's tax profile and some really key choices you can make. After that, it's all about your core financials. Then we'll navigate those tricky tax adjustments, calculate the final number, and finally, walk through how to submit with confidence. Ready? Let's jump in.
Okay, first things first. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just get a bird's-eye view of the whole thing. You know, understanding the overall flow of the form is seriously half the battle. It's actually built to guide you logically from point A to point Z. And these are the 7 big sections. The form is basically just asking you a series of questions in order. It starts with, hey, who are you? Then, what choices are you making for tax purposes? Okay, what did your finances look like? How do we adjust that for taxes? And finally, so what do you owe? See, each step just builds right on top of the last one. It makes sense.
All right, let's roll up our sleeves and get into the first real part of the form. This is where you lay the foundation. You define who your company is, and you make some pretty important decisions that are going to affect your entire return.
Step 1, taxpayer details. Now, this looks like just your basic info, right? And for the most part, it is. But don't just fly through it. Pay close attention to those questions near the bottom. This is where you have to declare if you're using a cash or accrual accounting basis. That choice is a big deal. It changes how you report everything. So it's a super critical starting point.
Now for step 2, elections. And listen up, because this section is powerful. This is where you get to make choices that could actually seriously reduce your tax bill. For most small and medium businesses, the biggest question is right here. Are you eligible for small business relief?
Here are just some of the key elections you'll see. And while they're all important, the one I really want you to focus on is small business relief. I mean, if your revenue is under 3 million dirhams, you might not have to pay any corporate tax at all. 0. So it is absolutely crucial that you check if you qualify for this before you go any further.
Okay, let's move on to step 3, the accounting schedules. This is really the heart and soul of your return. This is where you take your business's performance over the year and translate it into the numbers the tax authority needs to see.
And this is your statement of profit or loss. You're going to start at the top with your revenue, all the money that came in. Then you just work your way down, subtracting your different expenses, things like salaries, rent, depreciation. The goal here is simple. Just report what came in and what went out.
And after all that math, this is where we land. After you account for everything, this business actually has a net loss of 754,813 dirhams for the year. This number right here is our ground zero, our starting point for the whole tax calculation. Next up, you'll fill out the statement of financial position, which you probably know as the balance sheet. Think of this as a financial selfie of your business on a single day. It just lists what you own, your assets, and what you owe, your liabilities. It gives a snapshot of your company's health.
Okay, deep breaths. We've arrived at what can be the most confusing part of the return. Steps 4 and 5, the tax adjustments. This is where we have to build a bridge between your accounting profit and your taxable profit, because believe it or not, they are often 2 different numbers.
So why are they different? Well, a huge reason is something called non-deductible expenditures. This feels a little weird at first. These are totally legitimate expenses you spent real money on, but for whatever reason, the tax law says, sorry, you can't use that expense to lower your taxable income. And right here on the form is where you handle that. There's a whole section for these adjustments, listing out common things you can't deduct, like some entertainment costs or donations. And because you can't deduct them, you actually have to add them back to your profit right here.
Whew, we've put in our financials, we've made our adjustments. Now in step 6, it's time for the big reveal. Let's see how this all comes together to calculate the final tax. This is the moment of truth.
So, after all those steps, we finally get to our taxable income, or in this example, it's a tax loss. And because there weren't any big adjustments in this case, the taxable loss is the exact same as the accounting loss we saw earlier, negative 754,813 dirhams.
So what does a tax loss mean for your final bill? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's good news. You can't tax a profit that doesn't exist, right? So if there's no taxable profit, there's nothing to tax. This leads directly to
This beautiful number right here. The bottom line? A corporate tax payable amount of 0. That's it. That's the final answer the whole form has been building towards. A clear result based on all the information you provided. We are on the home stretch. You've done all the heavy lifting. The math is done. This final section, Step 7, is all about the final review and declaration. This is your last chance to just check everything before you hit that submit button.
Think of this as your pre-flight checklist. Seriously, you just double-check all your numbers one last time, confirm who prepared the return, read the declarations you're about to agree to very carefully, make sure you have the authority to submit it, and once you're sure everything's perfect, you are ready to go.
So let's just do a super quick recap of the journey, right? You start with your financial statements, you confirm your business details and make those key elections, you plug in your core financials, you apply any adjustments needed, calculate that final tax number, and then you finish with a confident review and submission. It's a clear, logical process.
And there you have it. We've demystified the whole thing from start to finish. You now have the roadmap. You see that the process is clear and totally manageable. So the only real question left is, what's the very first action you're going to take to get ready for a smooth, successful tax filing?